Сайн байцгаана уу хүн үзэгчдээ. Өнөөдөр манай de facto нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор Эрдэнэ Ресурс Девелопмент компани гүйцэтгэх захирал ерөнхийлөгч ноён Петр Акерли оролцож байна.
Петр Акерли Эрдэнэ Ресурс Девелопмент компани гүйцэтгэх захирал. Петр Акерли Канада улсын Нова Кошигийн Сент Мэригийн сургуулийг геологич мэргэжлэр төгссөн. Тэрээр Эрдэнэ Ресурс Девелопмент компани үүсгэн байгуулагчийн нэг бөгөөд 2003 оноос тус компани ерөнхийлөгч гүйцэтгэх захирлаар ажиллаж байна. Мөн тэрээр Торонтогийн хөрөнгийн биржид бүртгэлтэй Орон Ресурс корпорацийн тууцын даргын албан тушаалыг хашиж байна. Ноён Akerley ашигт малтмалын хайгуул корпорацийн санхүү, төслийн менежмент болон ашигт малтмалын хувьцаат компани менежментийн чиглэлээр 25 гаруй жил ажилласан туршлагатай.
Good evening, sir.
Good morning, Jargal. Thanks for having me.
Congratulations with your double listings in Mongolia. Why are you doing that?
You know, it's a very exciting time for our company. We have spent a long period of time exploring in Mongolia, and we're finally got to the point where we've found what we began to look for almost 20 years ago. So we now have significant gold deposits in Баянхонгorт province. And for many years, we've thought about the idea of listing on the Mongolian Stock Exchange. Through the work of the FRC and the MSC and the mining ministry and ourselves, we've been able to find the regulations that have allowed us to take advantage of this opportunity. So we felt it's the right time for our company, the right time with our assets in the ground, and it's wonderful to be able to expose what we think is the upside of these discoveries to Mongolian citizens.
You said you have been working with the regulatories of Mongolia. What was the major challenge to have a Western stock listed company double listed in Mongolia? What kind of regulations, things were, what was their hardship on that?
You know, I think that the regulatory system in Mongolia is very bureaucratic. There's many different rules and regulations that have been built around the previous system, and it took many months for us to work with the FRC and the MSC to get through those bureaucratic questions, to get through those hurdles. And with the assistance of our team and just that sort of dogged determination to make this happen, we were able to get through that. And again, I see the effort that the FRC and the MSC and the ministry put in. Everybody worked very hard to get through those hurdles and found a solution to this.
Well, that's very good news, because you, as a first comer, you have gone through all these hurdles, which makes easier for other companies to be listed in Mongolia, also double listed. So tell us what, if there is any advantage or if there is any kind of positive things to be listed in two stock exchanges.
Well, there's certainly the direct advantage for our company to have an increased number of Mongolian participants with the company, to be able to share the ownership of the company directly, to be able to have those mutual shared benefits. I think it gives us an ability to communicate more widely to the Mongolian audience. It allows Mongolians to understand more fully our company. And our company is, I would think, a leader in Mongolia in terms of transparency, in terms of corporate governance, and to have those things out there in front of investors so they can understand that, you know, we're an open company. And I think that's a benefit to our company. For the broader Mongolian economy, when you think about foreign companies coming and listing on the Mongolian exchange, if we're successful, we can begin to bring international monies directly into the Mongolian exchange. We'll raise a small amount of money during this financing, but if we're successful, future financing, instead of going to Toronto or New York or London, you can actually bring those investors through the brokerage community here in Mongolia and see those commissions and those dollars that are paid to the brokerage community paid here in Mongolia, as opposed to those capital cities. So I think that's a real capacity building or strengthening of the Mongolian capital market system. I think that's one of the key elements.
Let's approach from all the stakeholders who just now described it, from the Mongolian ownership. Mongolians, I understand also, the local people own certain shares. Mongolians, those who will buy your shares soon after a certain time, after you are receiving now bookings. Then they will have great chance to understand what kind of behavior should be of the publicly listed companies.
Exactly.
Once they have shares on two market, through broker you can buy both your shares here in Canada.
Right.
Then they will have, I think, deeper understanding of how does this capital market works. But on the other side, Canadians or international investors will also watch it, right? Because this time difference, information asymmetry.
That's right.
How do you see that?
I think also there's an important element in that the international investors who are often concerned about the Mongolian legal tax framework, capital markets, this is a strengthening of that confidence. You know, if they can look to the Mongolian market and see that we have a Mongolian shareholder base that is interested in these foreign companies that are coming to work in the country, and that they can look to that as a level of confidence that increases investors' views on Mongolia. So I think that's an element that's important. I think from a trading perspective, because we're in two different time zones, there will be some that will probably trade in both of those jurisdictions and use the arbitrage between those two. So that actually can also increase the liquidity and the volumes traded on the Mongolian Stock Exchange.
You see, because if it is morning here, it is yesterday in Canada.
That's right.
So whatever happening today will be news for Canadians or North Americans tomorrow morning is news.
That's right.
So, and plus your main two projects are in Mongolia now.
Right.
And all the related your activities, informations about them will be first available to Mongolians when they are awake.
Right.
Then does it mean that the Toronto Exchange or their investors will follow more decline to watch Mongolia than vice versa?
I think that's a very good possibility, yeah. And that things will happen in both of those time zones that could impact the shares as they open on either exchange. But now effectively, perhaps not 24 hours, but we have a live market almost continuously.
Yeah, OTC, yes,
and
online.
So that potentially can also bring international investors into the Mongolian market who will look to be trading based on that news.
Exactly, that's what I see. To me personally, I thought there will be more buying shares here. But let's talk about that small technical difficulties where you issue here share and there share, yet you should not be diluting yourself, right?
Right.
So what was that concern? How you would have taken it?
Well, I think from a dilution perspective, we would be looking at dilution regardless. So had we not been raising money in the Mongolian market, we would have raised that in the international market.
Yep.
So the dilution is equal on either side. In fact, you know, at the same time as we're completing this Mongolian offering, we're completing an international offering at a higher price than we are in Mongolia, actually 38 cents versus the 34 here in Mongolia. We stopped that raise at a certain level, which is oversubscribed, so that we could raise an amount in Mongolia as well. So the dilution equalizes out, if you will.
That means initially you have issued the same amount shares in Canada and in Mongolia, right? So that both are having the same.
No, in this case, we're actually raising about 4 million in the Canadian market and about 1.3 million in the Mongolian market. And I view this listing in Mongolia as somewhat of a test case, you know, just to make sure the system works, to get through the FRC and MSC regulations and just get that trading materializing. And if this is successful, then we look in the future when we consider additional financings to look at something larger in Mongolia, or first in Mongolia, as opposed to doing the international offering. And as I spoke about earlier, perhaps that offering here actually brings in those international dollars. So I'm raising money through the Toronto market, but the monies are coming from Switzerland, from Malaysia, from Singapore. Why can't that be done here with the local brokerages? It just makes common sense. And anytime I can do something to increase the benefits for Mongolia, I believe we should do that. And that's why I look to this MSE offering as a great opportunity to share those benefits.
In that sense, probably Asian investors would be rather, compared to North Americans, rather buying Mongolian shares.
I think there's an increase in the Asian markets for looking at Mongolian shares, but as I mentioned, many of our investors are from Switzerland, from Toronto, from New York, and I would say they're more focused on those funds that are interested in the gold sector.
And it's also exchange rate issue because here in Mongolia it's listed in Mongolian tugriks.
That's right. And the tugrik.
So how long you can? What is the tolerance level of this fluctuation of the exchange rate? At certain level, it may have dramatic impact. If it's big.
I think initially it could have a dramatic impact, but I think you will always find equalization through the exchange rates and through the different exchanges, because there's always smart people that will look to take advantage of that. And so there will be, through arbitrage and through those watching the exchange rates, trading back and forth between Toronto and Mongolia. So you, for instance, as a shareholder in the MSE, could also have an international account. And if you wanted to trade on both sides of that, you can, and therefore you will find equalization through those mechanisms.
Does that mean that this double listing may impact, in a way, on reserve of the country, on also, through that reserve, on also rate, in positive way?
That's certainly a possibility. You know, I think as a first test case, it's probably premature to say that. But if we can see these other companies continue to follow and it attracts more foreign investment through the exchange, then it certainly aids, ultimately, Mongol Bank. So yeah, I think as an icebreaker, we've opened that door potentially to a much bigger flow of foreign investment directly into the country.
Yeah, icebreaker, good word. On this two rates differences and on investors pool differences, altogether, do you expect your market capitalization will have a substantial positive impact because of that?
Because of the MSE listing?
Yes.
I think the greatest value to our market capitalization from a Mongolian listing is a strengthening of our shareholder base, that investors can look at us as involving the Mongolian society in our company. Now, I've always had a view that we are guests in this country, the resources are Mongolia's, and we have to do everything we can to share the benefits. And today, we're beginning to share the financial benefits directly with Mongolia. I think foreign investors that are looking at our company will be given added confidence in our ability to get through the entire cycle from exploration, development, and mining because of the moves that we're making to broaden our shareholder base in Mongolia.
The first money coming from the first sale as IPO, right? It's kind of part of IPO.
Right.
The money comes to the company.
Yes.
Right? What will it change? You will have, say, a total of $5 million US, right? From Canada.
Right.
What is the purpose?
Well, we have a real significant milestone coming up here over the next several months. So over the last 2 years, we've done the drilling necessary to define a resource at Баянхонгорт, our flagship gold project. That project is now on the verge of going through the independent evaluation to establish that resource. And very quickly on the heels of that, we'll get into the economic studies. In addition, we'll continue to explore for other discoveries. But by the time we get into the latter part of this year, we'll have our resource in hand, we'll have the first economic studies, and we'll be able to tell the market what the economics look like, which is something we get a lot of questions about. You know, what is the return looking like on this? And we have high confidence because of the internal work we do, but part of the Canadian regulatory system, when you're listed on the TSX, is it all has to be done by independents, verifying both the technical and economic value. So we'll do that later this year.
What is the name of that standard Canadian?
The 43101.
43101, that is more and more internationally being accepted in the mining industry, which I have encountered, for example, Toronto Stock Exchange.
Yes.
We're coming to projects incognito. And they're really reevaluating or checking if where all things go or not. So this is the responsibility, of course, stock exchange in front of the shareholders, right, of the companies that are listed there.
That's right.
And I think it is also gives a new standard. And with this independent reevaluation, you will have now your list is completed for mining license, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
When do you expect that mining license for Mongolia?
So at the same time as we complete that initial economic study and the resource estimates, we will then move towards the mining license applications for both of our key projects, Altan and Баянхонгорт. And that work will likely take somewhere between 8 and 12 months to carry out the full mining license, resource registration, through the feasibility study and DEIA, which is required by the Mongolian government to issue that ultimate feasibility approval to then allow you to move on to the mining stage.
So you expect to receive both at the same time?
We'll stagger them, so they'll probably be applied for with about 2 months in between. But by the time we get into late 2019, ideally our target would be to have both of those in hand, to have completed our Western style pre-feasibility, which is the 43101. And as we move through late 2019 into 2020, have a bankable financing in place, which allows you to get the project financing necessary to construct the operation.
Okay, so if there is any possible hurdles you expect, because nowadays, frankly, because the government was not paying on time a royalty they received from mining companies to the local people on time, sometimes at all they're not paying, people tend to have kind of the rather negative attitude towards mining in their territory. How are you dealing with that?
You know, there's always going to be hurdles, and that's one of the ones that we recognize. I guess we have the benefit of having worked in Баянхонгорт province for over a decade, and much of that work's been done in Shinjinst and Баянхонгорт Sums. And in those Sums, we've worked very closely with government for that period of time, and really focused on working directly with the community. You know, we've established community liaison committees. We worked very closely with the schools and the hospitals and looked to provide local employment. Work very hard to educate the local people on what we're doing. You know, we have just hired an environmental officer out of Баянхонгорт province. We have employees from Баянхонгорт that are very high level in the company, and they're constantly looking to educate the local population, not through necessarily seminars, but being in the community and talking to people and making sure that they understand, without promising, but just understanding what our work is and what our objectives are. So I think we've done a very good job with that. It doesn't mean there won't be hurdles as we move forward, but we have probably done more than most companies our size on that community side. We continue to work with the community through scholarships. We've issued scholarships for the last 10 years, but as we move more closely towards a mining decision, we look to amp that up so that we can actually bring skills training to the local community where people are interested in the skilled jobs of a mining operation, whether it's heavy duty equipment operators or welders or electricians. I would like to see us focus on the Баянхонгорт area and those SOMs and identify young people that want to get that training, and we can actually help start that vocational work soon. So just integrating ourselves into the local life.
So you will be having operation in 2 places at the same time?
Likely again staggered. So Баянхонгорт is the leader, if you will, between those 2 projects because of the grade of the gold and because of the simple processing required to extract that gold. So we'll start with Баянхонгорт, and I expect over a 4 to 8 year period, you bring on Altan as well. So a single facility. The 2 projects are 16 kilometers apart. One of those straddles...
Only 16, 1/6.
16, yes. So they're close enough proximity to have a centralized processing facility. And one of those projects straddles the Баянхонгорт Shinjinst Sum border. The other is fully in Shinjinst Sum. But in any case, we look at those 2 SUMs as being equal in terms of our dedication to making a difference.
How deep are the gold?
Well, that's one of the real unique aspects about this. First is grade, and it's so rare to find high-grade deposits anywhere in the world today that are sitting at surface. So these 2 deposits effectively are exposed at surface, and they continue down. In some places, they continue to be open at depths, but generally you're looking at deposits that are about 150 meters deep.
Will it be open pit?
It'll be open pit.
Okay.
At some point in the future, you may consider some underground development, but there's no reason to consider that at this point.
So within the framework of your database today, you will go with open pit?
That's correct, yeah.
When two operations are in full swing, how many people you expect to be working on the site?
We're still working through those numbers, but I would estimate somewhere between 200 and 400 people would be employed at this operation.
That, and you are kind of preparing local to be more, as much as possible.
Ideally,
there, right?
I think that's something that we owe to the local community. You know, I think that's another part of that community benefit and community relationship where, you know, if we can make a difference and the opportunities there in front of us, we should do everything we can to bring that skills training to the local community first.
So, you say you start, I understand you are planning to start shortly, within a couple of years or so, right?
Right.
Then say by 2020 you start, okay? How long it will altogether continue?
Well, so the other unique thing about this is, I mentioned the high grade and the near surface. Probably the most exciting thing about this for me as a geologist is we've discovered a new district and we're the first ones to explore it. So my expectation is there's going to be other discoveries in this area. So when you look at the potential lifetime of this operation, it could be for decades. I think today we look at it as a 10 to 20 year operation based on the resources we can see in front of us. But I've never worked in a district like this before where the opportunities are so strong.
Okay.
You know, for us to go out and find, our target today is about 45 tons. That's our expectation that we have. But those are the first two areas we've discovered and they're sitting at surface. So what is the potential at depth in the other areas that are yet to be explored? So I see this as a center for mining for the long term in Mongolia.
You are a geologist and you have been spending more than 20 years in Asia, in Mongolia the longest, and you have Mongolian family.
That's right.
So, as a geologist, you now today not only investor but also running the large two projects that internationally recognized, which means listed and they're paying you money to do the job. What does it take? I mean, how you decided to make all these things?
You know, I think as a young geologist, just graduating out of university, I always looked at the opportunity to become an executive in one of these companies or to start my own company. So that was a dream I had from early on. And when I first set foot in Mongolia in 1997, and I had an opportunity to witness the geologic potential, I thought at that point, this is probably the best place for me to hang my hat and take that risk and go out there and start my own company. It took a little while to do that because you probably remember I was here in 1997-98. In 1998, the financial crisis hit Asia and Mongolia went into its first real downturn. And from 98 to 2001, there was very little activity here. But when Robert Friedland and Ivanhoe hit their first deep hole at Oyu-Tolgoi, I saw that as an opportunity to springboard into seeking the financing to start our company. And I did that in 2002, and we went public in 2004.
You are one of these few who have seen that, jump it on, hang your hat, as you said. And today you are probably not every geologist's dream and find sort of deposits right in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it is one of those real goals you have as an exploration geologist to go out there and find something. And we started from satellite imagery down to boot and hammer and found this in an area that no other geologist had ever explored.
What made you to think from that satellite picture to do this conclusion?
You know, it's just a series of very strong, methodical, regional exploration approaches that we carried out to find these deposits. And this sounds like what most geologists and exploration companies would do, but exploration teams are fleeting in their activities. So you've seen it in Mongolia. Many, many companies have been here, but very few really employ strong, methodical regional exploration programs. They come and they buy a property and the cycle changes and they leave. And what we have done differently is had patience and use a methodical approach. I knew when I stepped on the ground in 1997 those deposits were out there, but it takes time, it's high risk. We've invested $50 million in looking for these deposits. So yeah, take the risk, be patient, and take a methodical, good science approach. And it sounds like something everybody should do, but it's been rare to see that take place in Mongolia.
It is not only this $15 million, a lot tenacity, a lot strong belief in yourself, right? And so that's you are here. And now in geology, Mongolia depending a lot on this mining cycle. Now kind of from 2011 we went down. They say we got the bottom last year or so. Now we're coming back, right? What is your view on that? How long it will take time to come up, and how long we will stay there this time?
I think again it's patience and it's a long-term view. Mongolia will be on a trajectory of a rising economy because of the natural resources that sit in the ground. How quickly they're developed is dependent on cycles. It's also dependent on a stable, competitive tax and legal regime. And as we all know, that's been a bit of a challenge. So we need to see that stability in place for a long period of time to attract that foreign investment. But Mongolia will stay on that trajectory. There'll be the cycles in the commodity forecast, but it's inevitable that some of these begin to get developed. Ideally, with the right environment, we'll see many developed, and Mongolia can reach its full potential. And I really believe a lot of the things we do, they seem like small steps, but we want to help Mongolia attract that foreign investment. It's not just about our company and our shareholders. We're stakeholders in Mongolia too. I've been here long enough that I want to see that positive difference. So when we can do things like the MSC, yes, there's mutual benefits, but there's a team at Erdené that really wants to see this done to help Mongolia as well.
So basically, since we cannot avoid this dependence on mining for maybe next 10, 20 years, there is possibility to manage smartly the mining cycle. I mean, different policies, so keep that investment keep going. Exploration goes on when the time is not good still, and you need smart smart policy and political stability, right? Last question is about, we say, I mean, every government is saying that they will make this wealth fund, sovereign wealth fund. Why they are not doing it until now? What's your observations?
I don't think that the established deposits have been in place yet to really form the critical mass for the sovereign wealth, but they are coming together. I think with the right approach, Erdené Mongol is getting close to having that internal capacity to launch that. I think it is the right approach to take, but you still have a somewhat immature mining industry here. It seems like we all focus on this major mining industry, but it still is bits and pieces, and I think it needs more substance.
Mongolia needs to develop mining logistics as industry itself. Well, it takes time, it takes patience, it takes companies like you who believes in that, who works on that. So I would like to thank you for your wonderful job in Mongolia, and congratulations with your very strong, I would say, very first ice-breaking step in Mongolia in the capital market.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. За хүн төлөвчтэй өнөөдөр манай de facto нэвтрүүлгийн зочноор энэ саяхан Монголын хөрөнгийн бирж дээр бас давхар хувьцаагаа гаргасан Эрдэнэ Ресурс Девелопмент компани гүйцэтгэх захирал үүсгэн байгуулагч ноён Петр Акерли оролцлоо. Баярлалаа.